The Sejm rejected a motion to express a vote of no confidence in the Minister of Culture and National Heritage, Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz. Opposition MPs who authored the motion accused Sienkiewicz of responsibility for the unprecedented attack on public media. This was the first vote of no confidence which took place after only a few weeks of Donald Tusk's government. The task of Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz, a former lieutenant colonel in the secret services, was to take over the state media, Polish television, Polish radio and the Polish press agency, even though their legal authorities had statutory powers. The attack began on the 19th of December and continues to this day. In the meantime, several courts have found violations of the constitution and laws by people appointed by the Minister of Culture and National Heritage. Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz does not want to answer the question when the legal TVP authorities will return to Woronicza. During the debate, Sienkiewicz blamed the public media for the death of Paweł Adamowicz, the son of MP Małgorzata Felix. This is how he wanted to justify his actions. On the one hand, he said they were legal. On the other hand, he said that
Miałem wybór.
I had a choice to enter the legislative process, which would last months or years, and let the hate continue to fester and accept that it would escalate slowly, one thing after another.
Zlewać się dalej.
Donald Tusk, of course, defended Sienkiewicz. Nothing defends his service better than his work for Poland.
Jego służby Rzeczpospolitej.
Znamy go z afery podsłuchowej.
We know him from the wiretapping scandal. We also know him from reporting that he had the idea of setting fire to the building next to the embassy, according to the former minister, Ms. Bieńkowska. But the Prime Minister obviously didn't bother to remind us about this, also about the court's decision, which did not recognise Sienkiewicz's actions on the 20th of December to take over the public media by force.
Sąd zresztą orzekł, nie wpisał do kar.
The court did not enter the changes made by Sienkiewicz into the register. Yes, it did not, but the case is still continuing. You know, lawyers often disagree. You know, yes, but we have the right, not interpretations. Sir, are you talking about the law?
Proszę pana, pan o prawie mówi?
It is true that politicians of the ruling coalition do not recognize institutions in Poland that operate in accordance with the law. The National Media Council is an extra-constitutional entity that has appropriated the competences of the National Media Council, but it has appropriated them legally.
Bogdan Zdrojewski nie jest Trybunałem Konstytucyjnym.
Zdrojewska is not the Constitutional Tribunal, and only the Constitutional Tribunal can decide which act is consistent with the Constitution and which is not. National Media Council operates on the basis of an act that has never been challenged to the Constitutional Tribunal. Why didn't you pass the bill? Sir, at the time we were dealing with more than just the media law. Well, yes, they protested about it, but they forgot to file a complaint. It's hard to believe such excuses, all the more so because those in power do not recognize the Polish Constitutional Tribunal.
A co z zabezpieczeniem przez Trybunał?
And what about the security provided by the Constitutional Tribunal? It is not a Constitutional Tribunal, it is an opposition party in disguise. Sienkiewicz bases his illegal actions on the resolution of the 19th of December. The lack of arguments to defend the Minister of Culture is driving their MPs crazy. MP Słowa tried to snatch the microphone.
No bo wie pan...
Yes, the microphone can be used on Polish TV, not on Republika TV. Will you give me the microphone back? Do you want to become a reporter for Republika TV? Sir, I am speaking to you.
Tak bardzo okupowali budynek powstańców.
Sienkiewicz's actions are being questioned not only by the court but also by another minister in Tusk's government, Adam Bodnar. This is an opinion from 2 days ago sent to the Constitutional Tribunal and signed by Bodnar. In other words, it should be recognized that the liquidation of public radio and television broadcasting units requires an amendment to the Act. We presented these opinions to Sienkiewicz's party colleagues. You have these opinions from various specialists. They are often academic lectures sponsored by former Minister Czarnek. Okay, now I'll tell you whose opinion this is. Adam Bodnar, he signed it. Yes, of course, I haven't seen this opinion. I don't trust you. Please, it shows a lot. There is the signature, Adam Bodnar. You know, I will also prepare some documents in my cell phone. Really, don't joke, there is such an opinion regarding Mr. Sienkiewicz. You are just as unreliable as TVP. Because in the Constitution the Act comes before the resolution. To get round this, Sienkiewicz introduced a liquidator, which is also illegal.
Narusza samą istotę ustawy o radiofonii.
It violates the very essence of Radio and Television Broadcasting Act, which directly assumes the existence of the Polish television, Polish radio, and there is a separate act concerning the Polish press agency. There is no decision to change the act that explicitly mentions these companies by name. Anyway, the minister has no power to change the act at his will. The whole takeover in a gangster way recalls martial law, as the the media executors of Sienkiewicz's lawlessness put it.
Wprowadzają w sposób
They
siłowy.
talked so much about the rule of law, but this time they are introducing the terror of lawlessness.
Tymczasem wprowadzają terror.
As reported by the media, politicians of the Civic platform even recruited new people to work at the new TVP newsrooms.
Nigdy nie
It
powinno.
should never be the case, whether the platform calls or Law and Justice calls, that any politician of any party deals with job acquisition in one media or another.
W praworządnym państwie powinno być tak, że jeżeli
In a country ruled by law, it should be the case that if a minister breaks the law, he is charged, just as an opposition MP can be charged. An MP from the ruling party should also be charged if he has broken the law. Sienkiewicz broke the law? It is completely obvious to me that there was no legal basis for entering the buildings of TVP and other media.
budynków.
However, the government does not mind the lawlessness, which is why Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz remains the Minister of Culture. Polish President Andrzej Duda said he's prepared to negotiate with Prime Minister Donald Tusk to overhaul the country's judiciary, but the new pro-European government must respect his constitutional role in appointing judges. I'm always ready to sit down at the table and talk, Duda said in an interview at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. But Tusk must respect the presidential rights enshrined in the constitution. Poland's head of state, who was backed by the nationalist government when he took office in 2015, has emerged as the most formidable barrier to Tusk's pro-European agenda. Any legislation on key reforms has to contend with Duda's veto power, raising the prospect of difficult negotiations. The rivalry at the heart of the decision-making of the European Union's largest eastern economy threatens to derail the government's bid to dismantle 8 years of nationalist rule and return Poland to the EU mainstream. Tusk's top prize is access to some €60 billion in suspended EU funding. Duda said he reassured the Prime Minister in a meeting that while he's a politician with conservative views, he has a track record of eschewing radical views and is open to negotiation. But he reinforced a red line, exempting judges that he appoints from a verification process sought by EU authorities. Tusk's government last week introduced legislation to remove the selection of judges from political influence, but a verification mechanism remained open. This is an untouchable point, Duda said, adding that he made the same argument earlier at Davos in talks with European Commission Vice President Vera Jourova. Presidentially appointed judges are untouchable, he said. The judicial reforms are at the centre of a long-running battle over the rule of law in Poland, with the Commission the EU's executive arm. Overcoming tensions will give Warsaw access to the funding which has been suspended over accusations of eroding democratic standards. Tusk, a former European Council president, has already had several clashes with Duda in just 5 weeks in office over his attempts to reshuffle public media, pass a budget, dismiss a top prosecutor, and the dramatic arrest of 2 fugitive lawmakers who sought shelter at the presidential palace. The Polish head of state also met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for the first time since the two once close allies had a public falling out late last year. The two shared an awkward embrace in Davos, and Duda said that they'd moved past their differences. I have always highlighted that even in the context of tension, Poland's attitude towards Ukraine remains unchanged, Duda told Bloomberg. Poland is considering making more ammunition, military equipment, and scouring its stores for supplies as it works on a new aid package for Ukraine, Poland's new Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said in Davos. Ukraine has counted Poland as one of its closest European Union allies as it has battled an almost 2-year Russian invasion. Poland has given Ukraine humanitarian and military assistance and taken in millions of Ukrainian refugees.
We are looking at all issues to do with Ukraine with fresh eyes. I made my first trip to Kiev. The Prime Minister is intending to go. This is an issue of national consensus in Poland. We are examining what options we have of making more ammunition and equipment, and also what we still have in our stores. What we think and communicate to our allies is that the cost of deterring Mr. Putin after he conquered Ukraine would be much bigger than the cost of supplying Ukraine to effectively defend itself against his act of aggression.
But relations soured last year as a now former Polish nationalist government did little in Kiev's eyes to end the blockade of several border crossings by Polish truck drivers and over an extension of a ban on Ukrainian grain imports.
Just Poland shouldn't be the country that bears the brunt of most of the cost of solidarity with Ukraine on behalf of all of the European Union. The cost of this solidarity, which we accept is inevitable, should be borne more fairly.
Sikorski, who's a senior member of the newly elected pro-EU cabinet in Warsaw, travelled to Kiev last month seeking to improve bilateral ties after his ministry announced a fresh aid package for Poland's eastern neighbour. Sikorski welcomed the deal reached with Polish hauliers this week on suspending the blockade through which the drivers demanded that Brussels reinstate a system whereby Ukrainian companies need permits to operate in the bloc. But he also acknowledged that the two countries had to keep working on resolving challenges. To that end, Sikorski endorsed a United States plan to confiscate up to $300 billion in frozen Russian assets to help build Ukraine.
We also think that it's the aggressor that should pay for the damage to Ukraine. That the UN General Assembly vote, which overwhelmingly condemned Russia's invasion at the beginning of the war, creates a legal basis, in fact an obligation for the international community to redress that act of aggression and punish and charge with the costs the offending country.
Sikorski said Poland was back from a faraway trip into populism after his pro-EU camp won against the nationalist administration of the Law and Justice Party that has feuded with Brussels over the rule of law, media freedom, migration and LGBT rights since coming to power in 2015. Ukrainian soldiers stationed in the east said they are running low on ammunition, weapons and manpower and are facing challenges in stopping Russians from breaking through the front line. Now, because of the weather, we switched to defensive actions. The enemy constantly tries to conduct offensive actions. Main targets for our divisions are counter-battery fire at the enemy's artillery, mortars, anti-tank cannons, self-propelled artillery, tanks or often infantry, which moves for rotation. In the past couple of days, the enemy attempted to conduct offensive actions against our divisions, but without any success. Ukraine says it does not have enough ammunition to sustain the desired level of attacks and has urged Western partners to do more to supply it. In order to advance, to move the front line, we need ammunition, we need more manpower, we need weapons. If we don't get it now, we will not move anywhere. If the enemy understands that we have zero resources, it can easily put pressure on us. If other countries help us and provide us with ammunition, manpower and weapons, we will be successful. At the moment, we don't fire much. There is a shortage of ammunition. It's been a while since we fired 5, 10, 20 shells per day. General Alexander Syrsky, commander of ground forces, in his interview to Reuters said that earlier that Ukrainian troops are staging smaller counterattacks and that engagements on both sides are on a smaller scale to conserve ammunition and men.